So hello, everyone, and welcome to our virtual Life After Kings Sociology and Criminology event. Although we are not presently on campus, I would like to start today by acknowledging that Kings is located on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenapehoik, and the Attawandarun peoples. This land continues to be home to diverse Indigenous peoples whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the land and vital contributors to our society. My name is Laura Peters, and I'm from the Alumni Office here at King's. And also joining us today is Professor Jeanette Kumo. So welcome to you. This event is run in partnership between the Alumni and Development and the Sociology and Criminology programs. So our goal is to give students an idea of the types of careers our alumni have and how they got there. So as our panelists are speaking, if you have any specific questions for them, you will see a Q&A portion at the bottom of your screen. You can click on that and type in your question, and we'll try to look at those towards the end of the hour. So right now, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our guests. We have 5 alumni here who have generously given their time to come and share some of their experience. So welcome to all of you. We have Nicole Curtis. Nicole graduated from King's in 2015 with an honors BA in criminology. During her time at King's, Nicole was an active member of the Student Council and worked as Vice President of Events in her final year. In 2021, she graduated from York University with a master's degree in public policy, administration, and law. Nicole has worked in both the private and not-for-profit sectors over the last 6 years, and now works for Dying with Dignity Canada, a charitable organization that advocates for end-of-life rights in Canada. She lives in Toronto with her partner and enjoys boxing and yoga in her spare time. So welcome, Nicole. We also have Kate Clarysse. Kate graduated from King's in 2012 with a Bachelor of Arts, a double major, Sociology and Criminology, and she holds a Public Relations and Corporate Communications certificate from Fanshawe College. Since she left King's, Kate has been fortunate to work in various industries, including technology, education, and healthcare. She is currently the communications coordinator for the CMHA Thames Valley Addictions and Mental Health Services. In her spare time, Kate enjoys spending time with her family, reading, and going on walks with her dog, Mosby. We have Kimberly Srivastava. Kim completed an honors specialization in social justice and peace studies and a major in sociology at King's from 2008 to 2012. Thereafter, Kim attended Western University's law school and graduated with distinction in 2015. Kim started her legal career at Baker Law, a small human rights law firm in Toronto, and worked there for several years, culminating in her role as managing partner. She advocated for clients in a variety of areas, including disability discrimination, employment law, education law, and charter cases. In 2021, Kim transitioned to become the Director of Research and Content at HR Downloads, a local London tech company. HR Downloads offers its users a human resources information system, along with a variety of content to support users with their HR needs. Kim is responsible for all of the content on the HR Downloads platform, including content about employers' legislative obligations. Outside of work, Kim enjoys spending time with her family and puttering in the garden. Kim and her husband have 2 young boys and a very friendly Labradoodle, affectionately named Wally the Whale. Katherine Auld. Katherine is from the class of 2020 and has a BA in sociology. She was able to complete the program in less than the expected 4 years, as she had previously completed the Social Service Worker Diploma program at Fanshawe College, and some of these credits transferred. Katherine registers for online courses and webinars that she finds related to her field, including Safe Talk Suicide Prevention, Nonviolent Crisis Intervention and Prevention Training, and Standard First Aid and CPR training. Since graduating from King's, she has found employment as a disability support worker in a group home, a coordinator of youth development at a community resource center, and is currently employed as an employment specialist and youth coach at Leeds Employment Services. In her spare time, she enjoys writing, being outside in nature, and volunteering with friends. And last but not least, we have Christina Papadamou. Christina graduated in 2019 with a Bachelor of Arts with a major in criminology and a minor in sociology. In the summer of 2018, she had the opportunity to join TD Bank as a fraud specialist, and she's been with TD for about 4 years. In the fall of 2020, she started an online bakery called Christina's Pantry, where she makes custom treat boxes for special occasions. She keeps herself busy between working at TD, running Christina's Pantry, and spending time with her 2 cats. So again, welcome everyone, and thank you for coming. We will jump into our questions. And Christina, I'm going to let you go first. So tell us about your time at King's. For example, what did you study? Were you involved in extracurricular activities? Did you have a favorite professor?
Hi, thank you very much. Hey everyone, my name is Christina. As mentioned already, I did graduate with a major in criminology and a minor in sociology. A few things I kind of got involved with at my time at King's. I was involved in campus tour guide in my first and second year. So I was doing that part-time while doing school. We would guide new and prospective students around the campus, of course, answering any questions they had about university, educating them on the different programs we offered. And then as well in my second year, I got involved in what's called the RID desk, Residence Information Desk in the Alumni Court residence. So again, just making sure things were good with students coming through. They could rent out movies there, games, sports equipment, et cetera, kind of a few things that kept me busy during King's. And I am from Toronto as well, so I was living in residence myself. So I was always on campus between the library, residence, and getting involved. Kind of a little bit about me.
That's great, thank you. And Kate, if you'd like to go next.
Sure, thank you. So as was mentioned, I graduated with a double major in criminology and sociology. I actually lived off campus and I did work as well as study. So I didn't get to do as much as I would have liked on campus. So that's one of the things that I definitely recommend if you still have time, definitely get involved. And I'd say one of my favorite professors at the time was Professor Yeager. I think every class that was available in terms of what he taught, I took, and I really enjoyed his lectures, and I really enjoyed my time at King's.
Thank you, Kate. And Catherine, if you'd like to go next.
Thanks, Laura, for introducing me. As you said, my name is Catherine. I studied sociology at King's, and I loved my time at King's. Same as what Kate said, I wasn't as involved as I wish that looking back that I had been. But one extracurricular activity that I did do was the work study program. So I was able to work at the Right Place. So I don't know if any of you have ever accessed the Right Place. I think it's probably virtual right now because of COVID, but I would definitely recommend going there for help if you need assignment assistance or anything like that. Yeah, so I was able to work with some students and tutor, which also sparked my love for writing and helping with resumes, which contributes to what I do now. And favorite professor, there were so many favorite professors, it's hard to choose. But Tara Bruno was the person who got me interested in sociology in the first place when originally my plan was social work. So I would say she definitely contributed to that for me. Yeah.
Thank you. And Kimberly, if you'd like to share.
Sure, thank you. So as you heard, I did a social justice and peace studies honors specialization and then a major in sociology. My favorite professors were Dr. Shore and Dr. Cushing. So I think they're both still there. So if you have an opportunity to take courses with either one of them, they're fantastic. I also lived and worked off of campus, so I didn't have a ton of opportunity to get involved, but I will say I did enjoy when I was able to study in the library or just participate in some of the events going on around the campus while I was there. I did get to go on a couple experiential learning trips, which were really great. I'm sure that's not an option right now, but if that ever becomes an option in the future, those were really well organized and just a really great experience. And you make lots of great friends on those trips. So that was probably one of my highlights of my time at King's.
Great, thank you. And Nicole.
Thanks, Laura, and thanks for having me, and thanks for coming, everyone, to listen to what we have to say. So I graduated in 2015 with an honors BA in criminology. I had initially started in social justice and peace studies and made the switch to criminology after my first semester. And I loved my time at King's. I think I thrived because of what a great community I had great friends, and it was so nice, spending time on the King's campus. I lived in residence in first year and then moved off campus just not too far behind the library, which I spent a lot of time, but I was very involved in student council starting in my first year. I don't even remember what I did. I should have looked it up before I came here, but I had a few different positions, and then I actually ran for VP of events in my last year and won. So that was a lot of fun, getting to plan King's Ball and the King's Concert, a lot of great events. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun to go to them, but also to be involved in all the planning and everything. So yeah, that sums up my time.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. So we'll move to question 2, a little bit of a shift here. And Kate, we'll let you go first this time. So what are you all doing now? What led you to this career? Did your program influence your career choices? Did you need to do any additional schooling? And I think a lot of you did. And has what you're doing now always been your goal? So Kate, I'll let you.
So I am currently the communications coordinator for CMHA. And in terms of kind of how I got there is once I graduated from King's, I actually went abroad and taught English for a year in the Czech Republic. And I taught a lot of business English. So I taught people who were accountants, lawyers, communications professionals. So it kind of exposed me to a lot of different areas. And that got me interested in communications, because I worked with a lot of marketing and communications individuals. And so I came back and I went to Fanshawe for a year and did a postgraduate certification in public relations and communications. And then, as I mentioned, I kind of started off in the tech industry and did some time in education as well. And now I work for a community mental health organization, and it's wonderful. And I love being able to reach people, and mental health is so important right now, and it's so huge. And being able to get information out there and make it as accessible as possible to everyone is really a highlight of my career. And being able to write stories, get to know people with lived experience has truly made an impact on me, and I truly enjoy what I do.
Oh, that's great. Kimberly, would you like to share?
Sure. So when I was in university, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And to a certain extent, that's still true. My approach was always just following what I enjoyed the most. So my program definitely shaped where I ended up and where I am now. I really liked how social justice and peace studies and sociology really led me to think about the structures in which we live and work, and the power and privilege kind of tied up within those systems and how it impacts different people in unique ways. So that's what led me to law school, pursued law school at Western as well. And then, as you heard, I went on to work for a human rights law firm. I loved Baker Law. I loved working on those cases. They were challenging. We did a lot of test case litigation, which is basically where you try to change the law and push it and expand it to be more and to do more for different groups who are historically have been marginalized. So my program definitely influenced me and led me there. And then, as you heard, I've recently shifted out of the litigation field and into more of the realm of kind of creating content to inform employers about their obligations and what they need to do to abide by those obligations to improve workplaces across the country. So still relevant to my legal training, and I still rely on that a lot for what I do, but just a bit of a shift away from that litigation realm.
Thank you. And Nicole, if you'd like to go next.
Yeah, so right now I work for an organization called Dying with Dignity Canada. So we advocate for end of life rights in Canada. I started off, though, as Laura mentioned, in the private sector. I worked for RBC as a financial crimes analyst. So probably similar to what Christina does. So anti-money laundering and terrorist financing, which was super interesting. It was my first job after I graduated, and it really, taught me a lot, but I wanted to do a bit more in terms of like working with my community. So I left the private sector and I went and worked for a human trafficking charitable organization to help victims and survivors of human trafficking. Did that for a bit, and now I'm still in the charity space, which I do enjoy. Although I went back to get my master's degree in 2019 in public policy administration and law, because I was just finding that, I obviously enjoy helping people, but the frontline work is not really for me. So I'm sure, a lot of social workers it would be great for. I don't have that background. I'm kind of more on the policy side, and I do a lot of that work right now. So a lot of advocating, trying to change laws, or advocate to change laws, yeah, so I've kind of echo what Kimberly said. My career hasn't been linear, and I don't anticipate that it will be. I think there's different things that have served me at different times in my life so far and in my career so far, and I've just followed a path, and it's crazy how one thing will bring you to another thing. And unless you are dead set on, I want to be a doctor, and that that's going to be what you're going to study and do that for the rest of your career, that's amazing. But I don't know, I've kind of gone with the flow, and I've enjoyed all my career choices so far, and each one has taught me something that I can bring to the next. So transferable skills are huge. Just because one thing doesn't seem like another thing you'd want to do, you're certainly always going to be gaining important skills. And I've definitely realized that and been able to translate that on my resume. So I think I'll be moving into the public sector soon. So who knows, maybe I'll do all three at some point. So yeah.
Thank you for that. And Katherine, would you like to share next?
For sure. So as Laura said, I am now, I work at Leeds Employment Services, which is here on Queen Street in London, Queen's Ave, sorry, in London. And so we have multiple offices. I actually am supposed to be working out of the St. Thomas office right now, but because of COVID, I'm working from home, which is its own adjustment. But what led me to this career? So I actually was a summer student back in, I guess it would have been 2018 at Leeds Employment Services. And I mainly worked with the OW clients, so those who are receiving Ontario Works funding, who are on welfare. Just kind of helping them find jobs, helping them build their resume skills, their interview skills, their communication skills. If they're someone who has more of a limiting disability or a barrier to employment, we work with them to alleviate that barrier, whether it be a criminal record or really anything. So I've since I did that that summer term, I always wanted to continue working there. And then I went to King's, finished there, and then graduating into the pandemic, I wasn't able to go back to Leeds because they weren't hiring. But I did express my interest, and I think that letter of interest at that time really did help me to come back now. But in the meantime, as Laura said as well, I did work at a group home because I wanted to, and as Nicole was saying, to expand my resume and just get all of the different experiences that are in my field. So working with those with disabilities, there were also seniors in that home that I got experience working with. And then after that position ended, I worked at the Neighborhood Resource Centre here in London. And I got to work with newcomers. We did settlement services, we did basic needs, we had a food cupboard there. So it was really nice getting to know the community and working with kids, doing some summer programming. Yeah, and then a position opened up at Leeds not too long ago. I started back in October as an employment specialist and also youth coach. So based on my experience at the resource center running the summer camps, they were interested in my abilities with youth. So working with youth has really been my path since graduation, and I love it. I really think it's important to get people ages 15 to 30, that's the service area that I work with, getting those people involved, getting them work experience, volunteer experience, especially with COVID. It's really hard to find that stuff that helps them build their resume. So yeah, and additional schooling, yes. So going to Fanshawe definitely helped. I definitely recommend, if possible, in your in your life right now. If you can do university and college, it's really good, especially because some university programs don't offer that co-op experience where college does. So the theory that you learn in university about those populations that are going to work in sociology or criminology, putting it into practice through college really, really helps and really prepares you more than anything for the workforce. So yeah, I also don't know what my end career is going to be, but for now it's this. And I also believe that it's not linear. It'll go wherever it's going to go. You just have to be open to opportunities.
Thank you, Catherine. And Christina, your turn.
Perfect, thank you. So for myself as well, right in my last year of university, I ended up joining TD Bank, as mentioned before. So I have been there now about 4 years. I did start out working within their fraud loss prevention team. So we were strictly like first line of defense. It was a call center job as well. So we were taking in calls from customers, dealing with them being victims of fraud and scams, protecting their accounts, adding that kind of extra security on their profiles as well. Then in 2020, I ended up moving into my current role, which is a fraud detection analyst. So now we're working more on casework, specifically focusing on like our more high valued customers, analyzing their profiles, looking for more money laundering, personation, identity theft, seeing if they're a liability to the bank. So more of the behind the scenes, not directly customer facing, definitely not taking calls anymore for that matter. In terms of extra schooling, I didn't do anything past my Bachelor of Arts. It wasn't as well required for my line of work, at least with TD. I definitely would recommend going on into a master's, or again, like Catherine just mentioned as well, getting the college experience, because the co-op can definitely be helpful to kind of figure out more of where you want to go. But yeah, it's kind of a little bit about me and where I've gone so far.
Oh, thank you, Christina. And it's really striking the variety that the 5 of you collectively have had with career experience, especially since you're all relatively early in your careers, for you to have such different backgrounds. And it really highlights, I think, the different things that you can do starting with the sociology or criminology. So before we go to question number 3, just a reminder for the students watching, if you do have any questions for the panelists, please just type that into the Q&A below, and we will hopefully be able to address those specific questions. So we're going to go on to our 3rd question, and we're going to let Nicole kick things off for that one. So how has COVID-19 impacted your work life? For example, what changes have you seen in your industry? Are you working from home? Do you think some of these changes are long-term? And are there any positive changes or improvements that you've seen with the impact that COVID has had on with your work in particular? So let Nicole go.
Thanks. Okay, so yeah, I mean, probably similar to a lot of folks, I now work from home full time. So my partner and I live downtown in Toronto in a condo, and he also works from home. So we are working in, a 1-bedroom plus den, both working, very different careers. So that's definitely been a little bit challenging, although we've gotten used to it by now. So yeah, working from home. In terms of my industry, there's been some changes. We are a national organization, so we reach out to all provinces and territories across the country. The good thing has been that because of COVID, we had to move everything online in terms of our events. So now all of our events are through Zoom, similar to this. And so we're actually able to reach more people since we're national based out of Toronto. We'd have to fly somewhere if we wanted to do something. So like an in-person event. So we actually are able to reach a lot more people, host, we weren't utilizing this online platform as much before. So even just hosting webinars or sessions similar to this, it became new to us. And so we realized, wow, this is a great resource that we haven't been using in the past. Other than that, though, I mean, not too much has changed, not more than I think what most people are experiencing. Can be a little bit isolating at times and definitely strange. I started actually my job, I'll be 2 years in March. So I actually started this job online, March 2020. So right at the beginning of things. So definitely onboarding and trying to get to know your team. Not being in person can be a bit of a challenge. You do miss that, colleague bonding in the office, catching up on weekend plans and all that, that's certainly different. And I'm sure everyone, feels that, even students, having to do everything online. But yeah, I still have a job, and that's what I'm most thankful for. I was able to, work remotely and continue to do that. And I think, I'm so grateful that I've had that opportunity, because I know some folks haven't. And I don't know what's going to happen moving forward. I don't think anyone does. I don't know if I'm ever going to go back to the office. So I'm saving a lot of money in TTC fare, which has been a plus, I guess.
Oh, that's definitely one plus for sure. And Catherine, if you'd like to share.
So COVID has definitely impacted my work life, but same as Nicole said, I just started in October, right? So the entire time that I've worked at this job, it's been COVID. So it's not like I had to be trained and then relearn things. I was just kind of thrown in the way that they were already doing things, which was virtual. So the biggest, I'll just kind of explain, like the biggest responsibility in my job is I'm supposed to reach out to not-for-profits and then match them up with the high school students or the university students or whoever the young people are that I'm working with who need volunteer hours, right? So what are your skills? What would you like to do in the future? Here's a not-for-profit organization that I can connect you with, and you can go and get some experience for your resume. With everything being closed, or most things being closed, especially a lot of the not-for-profits and charity organizations, it's really, really difficult for them to get that experience. So basically what I've been doing, rather than going and, presenting my information in person, normally I would be giving presentations to the high schools and in person to the universities, like about what we do for recruitment and stuff. Now I'm just doing that virtually. So I guess not much has changed. It's less fun, same as Nicole said, you don't get to go to the office and talk with people about other things. I guess just carving out volunteer roles that are virtual. So having people, work on social media things for companies rather than go and participate hands-on, things like that. So just kind of thinking outside the box is what it takes. I personally love working from home. I enjoy going to the office, but being at home is more comfortable for me. So that I do see being a permanent change for myself, which is nice. But
Thank you. And Christina.
Perfect, thank you. Similar with myself, I've just with my time with TD in my previous role, I was in office. So then when COVID hit in March of 2020, I was still in the call center role. I did end up coming home. They did turn us over to working from home fairly quickly. I'd say about a month after everything kind of hit and got overwhelming. So I've been home since. Laptops, everything's virtual. When I started my new role as well, just similar to Nicole as well, with meeting like a new team, new manager, that probably was the most challenging part of it, but you've learned so much more working from home. You have more of that work-life balance, I find, which I've appreciated a lot in the last 2 years, give or take. But yeah, aside from that, I think even just overall, like our management team has been pretty understanding with that work-life balance. So it's given a positive impact in that sense. But as for going forward, so far for us, they haven't said if we will be going back like permanently. There's been some talks about it, but so far everything's still staying working from home for us right now. Yeah.
Thank you. And Kate, if you'd like to share.
Sure. So I'm in my current role since March of 2018. I actually went on mat leave in February of 2021. So I did about a year in COVID. So it was definitely different. I felt it was ever changing being in the communications field. You're constantly trying to communicate not only with the public, but with employees as well. I do a lot of internal and external communications. So it felt like every day I was doing something different, or it was constantly changing because the government was constantly changing things as well. So it felt like no day was the same. So it was very, very busy at the beginning. But once we kind of settled in, it was really nice in terms of in terms of our community mental health space, like I believe Nicole said, you know, we moved a lot of events online. We did some virtual counseling, which wasn't something that was done prior to. We did have to keep a lot of in-person because we have a crisis center, which is operated 24/7. So similar to the emergency room or the hospital, you know, trying to equip staff with masks and gloves and gowns and everything. So there was a lot of different moving parts. I myself worked, I believe I was 3 days from home, 2 days in the office, because we did still have staff on site. So, you know, it was nice to kind of have that balance of being at home some days, but also in the office, because like the others have said, I would really miss that kind of camaraderie. But you definitely had to, you know, keep your distance, obviously wearing masks. And so that was very different. And a lot of our meetings were still taking place online. So I was in my office, but the door was shut. But it's definitely been a learning curve. And I was hoping by the time I would come back from my mat leave, but COVID would be over, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So therefore, yeah, I'll be going back to a COVID-like office, and I'm interested to see where it's going to continue to go.
I don't know if any of us thought it would still be going on right now, but it is, and we can only make the best of that. And Kimberly, would you like to share?
Yeah, so I've actually been working remotely for about 4 years now. Baker Law was located in Toronto, and I moved to London just before I had my first son. So in terms of remote work, it's something I'm very familiar with, and thankfully law is something that you can do remotely with the right technology. So it wasn't a huge change for me. I was actually on mat leave when COVID started. And I came back in July of 2020. So the office had kind of sorted everything out. And as I said, I was in London, so it was not a big change for me. In terms of the industry, the pandemic was good and bad for law. It forced the courts to come into the 21st century finally. So instead of having to go and file everything by paper, it was really nice to be able to do it all electronically. There were a lot of benefits to access from an access to justice perspective. Once the technology was put into place, even things like having witnesses testify at a hearing, like that can cost a lot of money and disbursements to pay for the expert to come and their travel and their food and lodging and whatever. So in some ways, it made justice a lot more accessible, or like legal process more accessible and more affordable for certain individuals. And I worked always with applicants, so always the ones who were alleging to have been wronged, and they usually were of limited means. So that made a big difference for our clients. The negative side was that the time it took them it took the courts and tribunals to shift to online was just detrimental from a delay perspective. And even now, most of my work was at the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario, and even now, like the backlog has not cleared. And so from that perspective, in terms of access to justice, if it's not timely, it's, justice delayed is justice denied. You've heard that saying before, I'm sure. And in a lot of ways that becomes true. The evidence becomes stale, memories fade, and that really risks the outcome. And so we have to have a lot of difficult conversations with clients about, what the practical realities of the situation were and what kind of outcomes they could look forward to. And those were very different conversations from what they were before the pandemic. So kind of a mixed bag for the legal profession. As some of the panelists have mentioned, I also started my new role this past summer. So onboarding remotely. I started in a managerial position, was just promoted to director. So I had to learn about my team and get to know everyone remotely, which was a challenge, but I think we've made our way through that. Thankfully, everyone was kind of used to working remotely at that point. So the transition was pretty smooth, I would say. The content that we have to create is still try to help guide employers through all of these changes and all the different restrictions that come into place, the different rules, the different public health orders. So helping employers navigate all of that, it definitely keeps like our compliance content, our compliance team very active. And at HRD, it has led to a positive change, I think, in the sense that now employees are invited to select where they feel they will be most productive. So when the time is right, if you would like to be back in office full time, you can. If you prefer a hybrid, you can choose that. Or if you prefer to stay remote, that's an option as well. So and within this industry and this organization, I think that has led to a little bit of flexibility, which certainly as a parent of a young family, I appreciate that flexibility, and I certainly intend to take advantage of that.
Thank you, Kimberly. So we'll move on to the next question, and Katherine, we're going to let you kick things off this time. So what advice would you give to a current student or a recent graduate looking to enter your field? For example, what do you wish you knew when you were a student?
Okay, so something that I wish I knew when I was a student, which I guess I kind of did know because I was told, right, is you can do anything, and you actually can do anything. I'm not saying it to be like motivational, but like truly, like if you see a job posting that you want to do and you're reading through, like, okay, I can do that, I can do that, I have this, oh, but I don't have that, or oh, I don't know how to do this. Apply for it anyway, because you can learn. There will be someone there who will train you if you're the right person. Don't let like one thing or a couple things on an application deter you from applying, because having done like the communications with employers and with like staff of places, like you hear about their backgrounds, and their background may have nothing to do with the role that they're actually working in, right? It's worth it to apply anyway. What other advice do I have? Get involved. I think I said in my little bio description there that I sent to Laura was there's free courses. If you look online in your sector, like you can find webinars for free now with COVID. Obviously some trainings like first aid and stuff like that, like you do have to pay for, obviously, but there's all kinds of free information and certificates and stuff out there. Like just get involved, build your resume, look for opportunities. And Nicole mentioned something earlier too that made me think they, you know, like if your end goal is to be a doctor and that's like you're set on, that's great, like follow that path. But if you're not sure, or like you have some ideas, but you're not set on one, like don't commit to something. Like be open to changing your career path. Be open to like, okay, I'm working in this role, but I could still be applying, or I could still be looking on Indeed every so often just in case something new comes up. Like don't hold yourself down to anything just yet.
Very true. And Christina, what would your advice be?
Thank you. Yeah, she actually just touched on it too. I was going to say to be open-minded to any opportunity you can get. At least for myself, when starting out with the bank, it wasn't the original route I thought I would kind of go right after finishing. But I feel like I've learned so much from that, just doing something different than what I originally pictured myself doing. The other thing though I would really suggest is make connections, because you never know. I find at least in the corporate world, the connections you have can mean so much later on down the line. You never really know who you may cross paths with, or who might be able to help you out with an opportunity in the field you want to go into. So definitely I would say start building connections now. Even with profs, you could get so much little insight from them and their experience too prior to teaching, right? So that's kind of what I would recommend looking back.
Well, that definitely makes sense. Kimberly, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo Christina. I would say be brave. Like, don't be afraid to cold call or cold email someone. Certainly in the legal field, like there are so many lawyers who would be so happy to just, well, when it's safe, meet and have a cup of coffee, or meet over Zoom, or just chat and tell you, like, just share with you what they do, what the role looks like, what, you know, the good, bad, and otherwise is with respect to the role, and listen to you, and we'll be happy to hear what your thoughts are, what your plan is, what you think you'd like your path to look like. And we remember those conversations. I did a lot of those, and I know a lot of my colleagues made time to do those and found that really important. So I'd say be brave, send that email. It's okay. You can proofread it as many times as you need to. I'm the same way. But reach out, make those connections. As Christina said, they can really make a difference. And you might be surprised what kind of doors that might open. And the other thing I would say is don't give up. I ran a hiring process back in last March, and it was for one position, and we had over 85 applicants. So, but I went through every single one of those applications, and I mean, we had to make a short list. People had to be cut. Good people had to be cut. And it's hard to make those decisions, in my position, but it's also hard to be the one who's just told, thank you so much, but no, thank you. And I would say, don't give up if that happens to you. And if you feel like that keeps happening to you, don't give up, because it's very possible that your application looked really strong and you just missed the cut. And I know that can get disheartening. And I spoke to, even within the interview process, we spoke to some really amazing candidates, and there was one position, and that's all we could offer. But just don't give up, because you never know when your resume or cover letter is going to speak to someone. And again, with those connections, you might be able to open the right doors and connect with the right people. And as you've heard, like, we've all had very different paths and lots of different opportunities along the way. And so just be open to where that might take you.
Thank you. And Nicole, what would your advice be?
I have to just echo the other panelists, because I don't think when I left King's, I really appreciated how much your network and your connections, like how important that is. I had to go, when I decided to go back for my master's in 2019, I had to get in touch with old professors for a letter of recommendation, which I know is, part of what they do. But luckily, I had built great relationships with a lot of my profs, and they were more than happy to do that for me. But I just thought, like, if I hadn't, connected with them on LinkedIn, which I'm a huge LinkedIn person. So if you don't have a profile, I recommend making one. I was able to go to those profs, and they were happy to do that for me. So you just don't know when you're going to need somebody for a reference, or just because, they have an opening somewhere that you would want to work at. I also, on LinkedIn, similar to what Kimberly said, like, I've just cold messaged people on LinkedIn and been like, I just graduated with this degree, I have this experience, I really admire the work that your organization does. Like, are you hiring anytime soon? Or just like, it's literally doesn't hurt. The worst is they're going to not respond to you, and then, who cares? So yeah, I just think making those connections that's what I didn't realize would be so important until I went into the workforce. I thought it would just be as simple as, oh, here's my application, but it really helps to know people and to have good connections.
And Kate, what would you say would be your advice?
So, I echo everything that all the panelists have said. The other thing is kind of working off the networking is look into alumni. Look at the vast alumni that come from King's. You see 5 of us here today, all the jobs, the various expertise that we have. I believe the Alumni Association has a mentorship program. So tap into those resources that are here for you at King's, because I don't believe they were around when I was graduating. But, reach out to alumni, go on LinkedIn, like Nicole said, and, look into King's alumni and see what they're doing, because as a King's alumni, I'm always happy to connect with a King's student and talk to them about my path, and, go to the Life After King's sessions and learn about the various careers that are out there. And, really tap into those networks that you have. Don't, go to networking events, really build those connections. And even when you leave a job, try and connect and stay connected with those connections, even if it's 1 or 2, because you never know where that person could go and where they could lead you as well. The other advice that I have is volunteering. If you have the opportunity to do some volunteering, that is something that can also give you some experience. And also, if you're not sure what you want to do, then it also gives you an idea of, what your interests are as well.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And just to echo what Kate was saying, King's does have a mentorship program. So we do try to match up current students with alumni who are in that field. So I encourage you to take a look at the King's website, and you can sign up online if you are interested in being paired with a member. and we'll check out our volunteer database of alumni and try to match you up with someone. They can answer some of your questions and help with some guidance and that type of thing. So we have a couple of student questions now, but again, if you do still have a question after hearing everything that's been shared, please type that into the Q&A below. So this question, and I'll put it out to whoever would like to answer. As a student, did you ever feel stressed about making these career choices, or as graduation is coming up, did you feel a lot of stress and you didn't want to make the wrong first move and ruin your whole career? So what would you say to students who are, you know, can't stop thinking about their career and feeling really stressed and they don't know where to start and they're feeling a little bit overwhelmed? What would you say to those students?
I was very stressed because I had student loans that I needed to pay. So I was like, I need to find a job, and I just didn't want to get any job. You know, you've just put all this time and effort into your undergraduate program, and you want to go out and you want to do whatever it is you think you want to do. But my advice would be, like, the stress is just going to happen. It's normal. But I mean, ultimately things do work out as long as you keep pushing forward and trying and putting your resume out. Like we said, getting connected. If you put in the work, something will come. I think the one thing that I will just say is that I started off working for the bank and now I'm in the not-for-profit. I think you sometimes have to do certain jobs to realize what you don't want to do. So, you know, looking at people's debits and credits and stuff, that just wasn't for me. I learned a lot. I met great people. The bank gives out nice bonuses at the end of the year. Like, there were some perks, but I was like, this just isn't, you know, feeding my soul right now. So I went and did some not-for-profit work, and I'm like, this has been great, but you know, I'm ready to move on to something else. And I realized I want to do policy. So you kind of have to just start to figure it out. So just, you know, even if it's a job you don't really like, you don't think you'll like, just start it. And, you know, things can move quickly. Like, you'd be surprised. People sometimes, you know, job rotation can be quick because people quickly realize, like, okay, maybe it's not exactly this I want to do, but it's this. And then they move on. So I would say just, you know, just get started so that you can figure out what you don't want to do, so that you can quickly find out what you do want to do.
And just to add on to that as well, don't do nothing, right? If you're so afraid of making the wrong decision, a lot of people will just not do anything. They'll just wait for the perfect opportunity. Don't wait. Get your, as Nicole said, get your name out there. Start with something, anything, and then it'll lead to something better. But don't out of fear do nothing. Ask for help if you need it.
True. Okay, we have another question here. And maybe this would be a good one for all five of you. But do you have a current employment goal right now that you're working towards? So do you have, you know, something that you know you want to get to and something that you're working towards right now? And Catherine, you can go ahead and start if I'll put you on the spot there.
Kind of thinking, I don't have like a certain end goal. I would love to work for the government in one of the funders like Service Canada or MLTSD, something like that, just because the organization that I work in right now, we're funded by all of those different branches of government. And I would love to be part of the decision-making process and, you know, some of the policy stuff, just to make changes. Like, I love being able to work on the ground in the front lines with people who are already dealing with these barriers, but I would love to work higher up so that they don't have the barriers in the first place, if that makes sense. So getting higher up and maybe serving government in the future would be my dream.
That's great. Christina, what do you have on your agenda? What's a goal in the future for you?
Yeah, I think for me, it's more still like internal with TD, but we have like kind of like a special investigations unit that's more of like undercover spies, if you want to call it, for the bank that kind of investigate fraud that happens internally. So that would be more end goal in the long term, because I definitely have to get some more experience within the analyzing side. But yeah, definitely like a special investigations unit, more casework, kind of behind the scenes work like that, I would say.
Great. And Kate, how about you? What do you have your eye on?
I think for myself, I mean, I've worked in healthcare for a while, but I would like to try and get back into the education space because I really enjoyed, not only did I obviously teach abroad and I worked in education for a little bit kind of in the beginning. So I think for me, it's trying out different industries and kind of figuring out where I fit in and, you know, really, and I really enjoyed the education space. So I think that's kind of where I might go if, yeah.
Oh, great. And Kimberly, what's your future goal?
Yeah, it's a great question. I just started this new role, and as I said, I was just promoted this month. So I'm trying to be really open to just like seeing where this goes and where this takes me. I kind of worked my way up to the top in litigation before I left. Like I was managing partner, so that was kind of as high as I could have gone, and I continued on with that. Litigation is a very demanding field, and I was looking for a better balance, especially having a young family, and I need that flexibility sometimes. So I feel like this was a good switch for me. I really love the law. I love thinking about how we can make it better, make it do more. So the role I'm in still allows me to kind of work at pursuing, you know, accessible justice and just outcomes, just from a different perspective. So I'm happy with the switch right now. One thing I've always really enjoyed doing was public legal education. So kind of reaching out people who would have become our clients previously before they need us, empowering them with the information they need to know about their rights and see when things, you know, for example, in an employment situation, when things are starting to go off the rails, or when, you know, they're facing discrimination, what they can do about it, and steps to take there so that they can help themselves and ideally wouldn't need a lawyer to intervene. So I've always really enjoyed that. And if I could find a way to kind of build that into what I do now, that would be really cool. But that would be in the future sometime.
Yeah, settle in where you are right now and see how that goes.
Yeah, exactly. One step at a time.
And Nicole, what's your future goal?
So I am likely going to make the switch to the Ontario public sector and work for the Ontario government, probably in policy, because that's what my master's degree is in. And that was my goal going into it. I think I was like one of maybe a handful of people in my program at York who didn't work for the Ontario, we call it the OPS, the Ontario Public Service. So probably doing that. Which ministry is a good question. I don't know. But yeah, I'm going to make the shift into the policy work. I do a lot of it now, but just continuing in that direction is what I'm gonna do. I have no like title ambition because I think similar to the way my career has gone so far, I'm just gonna keep moving forward and see what happens, because I don't have a you know, make it to the top. I don't know, whatever that means.
Thank you. So we have another student question has just come in. So specifically, Christina and Nicole, how did you initially get into your bank role?
So I just applied online, which isn't always easy to get a job that way. Like we all said, connections are key, but I did just apply online, but like through their careers portal. I was with RBC, but I think what's important to note is that it was like a maternity leave that I was filling. And then I stayed for 3 years. So I think that's an important note, is don't be afraid to apply to a role that's like a contract, like 6 months. You know, if you're covering for a leave of some sort, like oftentimes if you do good work and, you know, you show up and you do your job, they'll often extend it, or, you know, they'll be able to find something for you to do. And that's what happened for me. I started off just doing like straight admin work for a mat leave, and then I moved my way up and did analysis, and, you know, I stuck around, like I said, for 3 years. So that's how I got into it. And, you know, don't shy away from shorter postings, contracts. They often lead to full-time employment.
Sure. And Christina.
Yeah, for me, it was actually more of a connection. So I did have someone that was already in the bank for a while that thought the role would actually be good for me because she knew that I had studied crim and wanted to go into either like social work side, like social services, or criminology fraud side. So I did still, like Nicole said as well, I did apply through their portal as well. I just had to include the reference connection I had. But just to talk on like the contracts that Nicole mentioned as well, there's a lot of opportunities that come up with contract roles and temporary roles too that are 6 months, 8 months, 1 year contracts. And a lot of the time too, I find even just with TD specific, they either get extended or it kind of gives you more opportunity to apply into a next role once you're already in the bank. So definitely, yeah, definitely checking out the career portals, connecting to, even I'm on LinkedIn as well. So feel free if anyone wants to reach out. I'd be more than happy to talk more about what we've done and kind of give you some tips on at least the banking corporate side. But yeah, just connecting and take a look on their websites, apply as much as you can to different roles because you never know what you're going to get.
Sorry. Thank you for that. So we're coming up to the end of the hour. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share that they didn't work in beforehand? This is your last opportunity to share any little tidbit that you feel you've held back for some reason.
This wasn't something I held back. Just to add on to Christine, I'm also on LinkedIn. I don't have many connections on it, but you're welcome to reach out there. I would be happy to talk. I also did a little bit of tutoring. Like I said, I worked at the right place and I did my own independent tutoring. If anyone wants, reach out to me on LinkedIn and I'd be happy to help with any assignments or anything sociology related in that field.
Thank you. I think that any of the speakers today would be a great resource. But on behalf of our alumni office, on behalf of all the students, I would like to thank you all again. You've shared a wealth of information. So I do hope that everyone watching takes this advice to heart and finds ways to network and reach out to people and get involved and keep trying, and don't stress if your career doesn't start off linear and work your way up. Just try out a bunch of different things and really you'll be able to find your spot. So again, thank you to the 5 panelists today, and thank you, Professor Como, for joining us, and to all the students, and have a good rest of the day, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.